On today's show, a final look at the Senators as you knew them. We're going to take a big picture look at the depth chart ahead of a week that promises plenty of player movement.
And Steve Staios already pulled off one big move, but there's rumors more big moves are coming.
All that plus the buyout window opens tonight. Does that affect the Sens? And more on today's Locked On Sens.
I'm Jake Sanderson.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. You can also follow the show on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. The show is free and available everywhere you get podcasts, including on YouTube, where we say hello and let you know that a like, comment, and subscription go a long way to helping the show grow. Today is Wednesday, June 26th, and Pilsy, I got to admit, I was pretty relieved writing some of these names into the Sens depth chart for the last time ever.
Yeah, certainly that's a nice exercise, a breath of relief being like, okay, we're moving on from some of the old Senators, and we're going to be ushering in some new Senators, and this is going to be an off-season with a lot of positive change, I think, and this new regime is already, we're calling Steve Staios a chef. He's cooking up all these things. Honestly, he's more of a custodian, just mopping up past messes that Pierre Dorion has left for him. So he's on his way to doing that while mopping up, while also improving the area.
I know our guy Timmy Whalen's going to appreciate this as a guy in the restaurant industry, and I grew up in the restaurant industry. Shout out Blue Cactus, shout out Navarra, and a few other spots around town. But Pilsy, it's like when you come in first thing in the morning to do your prep, but whoever finished closing
last night?
Who closed last night? Nothing's done. Nothing's prepped.
Yeah.
It's a gong show in here, and we've got service in an hour. For Steve Staios, they've got about 3 months until opening preseason, but Pilsy, a lot of the work's going to be done in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, big time. And the key is, Ross, checking that goalie off the list, like cleaning up the goaltending is such a huge move to be done that before the draft. And now you can focus on other pieces. Oh,
it's like getting a electric, like a smart mop or a smart vacuum that just does the job for you, right? Because
the Roomba.
That's what the goalie does on the ice, right? Makes up for mistakes and is able to make your team look better. We meant to do this roster reset yesterday, but of course, with the Linus Ullmark trade, that took priority. So if you missed it, go check that out everywhere you get podcasts. But Pilsy, it was certainly a relief to swap out the name Korpisalo for Ullmark. I know the first round pick has value. I'm not saying it was like a bank robbery, although I do somewhat feel that way. But having Linus Ullmark in the core group, hopefully for years to come, still need to work out an extension. It could be a game changer for the Ottawa Senators. But since we spent so much time focusing on goaltending yesterday, Pilsy, let's start with the forward group and how things ended yesterday. This is an episode I would encourage everyone to go check out on YouTube because there's a lot of names on this list. Now, we have left off anyone without a contract, so prospects, basically, who are playing in college or still in junior. There's not a whole lot of them, to be honest with you, but these are the players who played with either Belleville or Ottawa last season. Yellow means they're a pending UFA. Will some of them be back? Maybe a couple more. Doubt a whole lot of them will be back. And then red is for restricted free agents. Pilsy, what jumps out at you when you see how things shape up both in the NHL and organizationally?
I would say the number one thing that jumps out to me is the wings. Like you got Tkachuk, Giroux, Batherson, and then pretty much every other spot on the wing in the NHL is up for debate and possibly needs improving. So that for me is the biggest spot.
They need 7 wingers?
I mean, they need at least 2 if you're looking at this. Well, it depends, like, because we have Greg as a 4th line center. Really, he's going to be a 3rd line winger, most likely. Joseph probably on his way out. Kubalik, my God, they couldn't get rid of him and send him to the moon fast enough, although I'm sure he'll get an opportunity somewhere else in the NHL. So really, they need 2 middle 6 wingers.
That's your free agency / trade wish list. You need 2 middle 6 wingers, because that would do, and who knows what's going to happen with Matthew Joseph. Bruce Garriock reporting that they are looking to move on from that almost $3 million salary over the next 2 seasons and maybe replace him with a bit more of a heavy forechecking presence. Brandon Tanev's name has been thrown out there a lot. But let's say that you're getting either Joseph or a like-minded player in that position. You're looking at him being a 3rd line piece with Shane Pinto. Are you at all willing to allow that 3rd line right wing role, let's say it is beside Pinto and Joseph, to be filled internally, or that has to be an external addition?
No, it doesn't have to be, Ross. I think a lot of people are very excited about Angus Crookshank. He showed very well in the short amount of time he had in the NHL last season. He obviously impressed the GM and the staff, as he was one of the first contracts to kind of get done. They wanted to make sure they're bringing him back. And I think he could be a good 3rd line winger next year in the NHL. But like you mentioned, it doesn't really make much sense if you trade a guy like Joseph just to replace him with Crookshank. Sure, it makes sense cap-wise, so it makes dollar sense, but you want a bigger veteran, kind of hard-nosed guy, I think, is the approach the new regime is looking for in the bottom 6 here. So I don't necessarily know if they're going to be too stoked about putting Crookshank in that position unless they find some ways to get that veteran, hard-nosed game somewhere else.
You focused on the wingers, so I'll pick up with the center position where it's the deepest. However, probably the most uncertain as well. Shane Pinto is an RFA. Josh Norris has not played a full season in a long, long time. I think I'm worried about how the center position is going to roll out if they don't at least get 1 veteran center. And this could be a guy that can play center or wing, maybe even preferably where he doesn't have to be down the middle and maybe is not too big to be a 4th liner. You know, you don't want a guy who's coming in as a respected veteran and then plop him on the 4th line and say, hey, thanks for coming. We appreciate you taking a chance on us as well. And we're going to play you 8 to 10 minutes a night. Now, if Pajot gets bought out, I threw it on Twitter at Sens Central. If you get him for 1 year, $1 million, something like that, that could be an option. Basically, I don't want the 4th line to be, how do I say this? Underutilized, maybe. Like we saw probably too much play of the 4th line with DJ Smith and then too little with Jacques Martin. I think that's in part because he didn't have the horses to be able to trust the 4th line, and with that had to rely on his middle 6 guys a little bit more. So if they could have a responsible 4th line next year, that would go a long way, I think, for the trickle up economics of getting the top guys out there at their top stamina and ready to go.
Yeah, that's fair. Look, I get the emotional tie to Pajot, but it just doesn't make sense for me at all, Ross. Like what you just mentioned it. If he comes in, you're going to put him on a 4th line. Pajot's going to be like, I was a huge part of the Islanders just a season ago. I don't want to play 8 minutes a night in Ottawa. So that doesn't really make sense. The only way it makes sense, Ross, is if obviously you have Norris. You don't know what's going to happen with him injury-wise. Pinto also, if his shoulder goes out, then you need someone that can bump up the lineup. But I don't know. I would have a hard time seeing Pajot coming in when he's basically being given a 4th line role. I think he would want to go elsewhere.
Right. And he'd probably have opportunities to, you would think. However, I'm just thinking that if you could get him in that Derek Brassard role, where Brassard ended up playing some top 6 because of the situation the Sens were in, that Pajot could be a utility knife. I think they need a utility knife in the bottom 6. Insert name here. I'm not married to any name, but they need a bottom 6 utility centerman who can play on the wing if possible, but they need a centerman because, again, Ridley Gregg's not going to be your 4th line center. We just have him here for the purpose of this exercise to show that the wings need work. And Ridley Gregg played majority centerman last year. He had his best hockey when he was playing center between Joseph and Tarasenko at the start of the season. So really curious to see how this all plays out for Steve Staios over the course. I said 3 weeks, like more like a week and a half with how condensed everything is here. The draft Friday, Saturday, and then boom, Monday, free agency open. So by the end of next week, I think July 5th, the Friday, we should have a pretty good idea of what the Senators roster will look like at training camp. Let us know in the comments who you would like to bring back. The RFAs remaining up front: Shane Pinto, Parker Kelly, Boris Kachuk, Igor Sokolov, and the UFAs are Dominic Kubalik, Yuri Smejkal, who we know has already signed a contract in Czechia, Josh Curry, Matthew Highmore, Garrett Pilon, and Boko Imama. All right, Pilsy, on the other side, let's get to the defense and goalies. Then we'll wrap up with some trade rumors, and will the Senators be utilizing the buyout window, which opens tonight? That's all coming up next. You're listening to Locked On Senators. It's your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. You guys know that's what brings home the winning trophy, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and even level it up to peak performance. They got superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. So whether you like speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. It's that simple. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not burning cash. With all the parts you need, but at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that W. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Check it out today, guys. eBay Motors.
All right, Pilsy. We've got some news coming out. Our friend Alex Adams with the Behind the Play podcast, also a contributor of the Hockey News. He comes out and says that Linus Ullmark will be speaking to the media in 15 minutes from right now. So we'll be able to get you some thoughts from Linus at the end of today's show. I also just got an email from WestJet to check in for my flight to Vegas. You know to follow at Sens Central on Twitter to be able to keep up with us all weekend long. We'll be pumping out content on YouTube, LockedOn.Senators. If there's trades, you know to make sure this is notification season. Have that bell clicked, and you'll know when new videos go live. All right, Pilsy, the forwards, plenty of work to do. The defense, even more. Is that fair to say?
Not quantity-wise, but quality-wise, yes. Because you're looking at this, Ross, and
it is so lopsided to the left.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. My first glaring issue is the right side of this decor. Like, Hamonic, we'll get to later on in the show. Zub, really, you want him slotted as a second pair right-hand guy. Obviously, if he's playing with Sandy, that's the top pair. And then JBD, I don't really know what JBD's future is with the Ottawa Senators. We've heard Steve Staios has been kind of shopping him around, seeing if teams are interested. I think he could be a serviceable bottom pair defenseman, but I'm not seeing that potential like I used to for him to be a top four guy. I was really banking on the fact that he could end up being a good partner for Thomas Chabot. Doesn't really seem like those two have meshed like we would want. And with the minutes and the assignments that Thomas Chabot has, JBD can't really be elevated to be on that same playing field, which is the issue there. So really, the only solid part of this right side is Artem Zub. Let's be honest.
Yes, and JBD, you said you don't know like what he is in the future for the Ottawa Senators, but I don't really know what he is as a player too. It's like
I feel like he's plateaued at a weird spot.
Yeah, where he's not what he was when he came in, where he was nervous to make plays, and when he would go back to get pucks and there was a forechecker on him, he would panic a little bit and give the puck away. He's cleaned that part of his game up. There's no doubt. It's just like, what makes JBD above replacement level in the organization? And if you're looking to get better, you could take someone who's a net even, I would say, because he's not like a huge glaring weakness on this team.
No. And he blocks shots. He plays hard.
He's actually one of the best shot blockers in the league. So maybe that is something that he's going to develop. But those types of defensemen usually hit their peak around 28, 29, 30. And it's like, we don't have time. Yeah. We don't have time. The Senators need to be good now. Now, if they keep JBD as a 6'7" defenseman going into camp, he's a right shot, and that's where they're the weakest. So I wouldn't just give him away just for the sake of doing so. But if a team's interested in him and you could return value and then upgrade at that position, why not explore your options? Of course, Brandstrom played a ton on the right side last year. He's the one guy who I think can do it. Whereas when you mentioned Chabot and Chychrun, it just felt like they both wanted to play the left side when they were out there together. Their wires would cross a little bit and they wouldn't know who was covering the right side. Pretty important part of playing defense. So you look at how this is all here. There's basically, I put the space after Brandstrom to get the minor league guys in there. But to be clear, the bar is really set after the first pair. Everything else beyond Sanderson and Zub should be explored this summer. There's a no movement clause that kicks in for Thomas Chabot in 4 days. So I think Shabby, there's a ton of upside still. He's 27 years old. Feels like he's 35 with how long he's been in the organization. Longest serving member of the team. But still, you have to explore all options. He's going to be making $10 million in salary next year, Pilsy. $10 million.
Yeah. And I think Shabby, when he was relied upon to be the number one guy and the Sens are going through the rebuild, it made a lot of sense. But now with Sanderson here, and Sanderson has clearly leapfrogged him in the depth chart, you can see why Steve Staios would be exploring to have a different option as a second pair guy. But if they keep Thomas Chabot, that's definitely okay. I think now as a number two guy, he could thrive a little more with less difficult opponents and matchups. But the key is, Ross, you got to find that partner for him. And the only partner we really saw work just signed a 4-year extension in Winnipeg instead of going to UFA and Dylan DeMello, right? So Is Zaitsev available? He's available.
Ron Hainsey, what's he up to?
He's the head of the NHLPA, so I don't think he's coming back.
We need some player assistance. I know PA stands for association, but we need some player assistance on the back end. Even in Belleville, like I would see, and look, writing's on the wall. Igor Sokolov's not going to be back. They will qualify him, though, and then try to trade him. I think, and this is more for a Belleville, but you're hoping to get a guy with a bit of upside. If they could get like a 23 or 24-year-old right shot defenseman who hasn't really made his mark in the NHL, that would be a swap I'd like to see for Igor. Rather than another forward, I think getting a right shot defenseman, just look at the depth with Lassie Thompson signing in the SHL. Like, that's Max Gannett, Matin Palo, who I think can play NHL games in a pinch. And then Jabril Toure, who was an overager playing junior hockey last year. I like the upside. He's a raw, talented, tall, lanky, great skater, but he ain't ready to play NHL games next season. So they need to address the right side of the defense, not only at the NHL level, but in the AHL as well. Organizationally, they are way too thin.
Yeah, a guy that kind of popped up on my feed, Ross, and would make me curious would be a guy like Kalen Addison. He's played a lot of NHL games. He is 24 years old, a right shot puck moving defenseman from Brandon, Manitoba.
He's buddies with our guy Skyler, the Boris Kachuk scout.
Yes. We're still waiting on that scouting report. But Kalen Addison's not really a good defensive guy. He's been in the minuses, although, I mean, last year he played mostly for the San Jose Sharks, but he's not returning there. So if you could get him to kind of be a top pair guy in Belleville, that if you want to bring him up, that could be a guy that could work.
Yeah, 24 years old, be 25 in April. I like that name drop. Yeah. Now, let us know if you have any names that you want to see for the Ottawa Senators to attack on the back end. Obviously, we would all love Chris Tanev. We would all love Brett Pesce.
Yes.
We would all love Matt Roy. Are they realistic names? We'll find out soon, won't we?
Yeah, and that's the thing, Ross. It's going to be so interesting to see how this new regime does in attracting free agents. I think that's going to be a telltale sign, Ross, of how the rest of the league and players, and most importantly for this, agents think of how the Ottawa Senators look now versus how they used to, because the Ottawa Senators had to overpay and add an extra year just to bring Korpisalo in. Let's hope they don't need to resort to that this time around.
You listened to Steve Staios yesterday morning. We recorded right after, but they also posted just a one-on-one with the NHL, with the Senators website. I think it was Daniel Chisholm that was doing the interview. And what I learned from that, just talking to Staios and hearing about how he wants to welcome Linus Ullmark into the group, he mentioned like welcome into our great city, our great community. Like they are going beyond just the scope of the team. They want to welcome people and make Ottawa a destination where people want to be. And look, like I almost, and this is way off track, we don't have to get down this road, but I'm almost happy that the arena has been delayed as much as it is, because I think this new regime has so much work to do in fixing the brand name of the Ottawa Senators that it almost like it needs to happen before the shiny new rink. Because I think you'd be lying to yourself if you don't think the facilities matter to the players, because it matters the most. Like look at Florida, and I know the beach is so easy to say it's a selling feature, but the players are all talking about how this practice facility is where they all live. They can get there so easily. Like the Sens
drive golf carts to get there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're going to be having that. Maybe some snowmobiles to practice in the middle of January down 10th Line Road or something down in that area. But like, look, the Sensplex, it was state of the art when they built it 20 years ago.
Yeah,
I don't know what the Sens setup is there. I'm assuming they don't just use the same dressing rooms they might. But like in Winnipeg at the Hockey for All Center, where their practice rink is, there's like a separate wing of it that's like their facilities. They have their own gym. They have their own like player lounge, all that. It's such an enormous thing that the salary cap doesn't qualify, is how much you are investing into the facilities. And I think we're so off track. But get a defenseman who wants to be here now, and then we'll work on fixing the reputation around the league. But I like your point there, is that it's all about building up what is the biggest weakness on the team.
Yeah, and they need quality, not quantity. Like they really need to find a top 4 right-hand shot guy. Because, Ross, even though we've already had our public service announcement that we understand Ullmark played for the Bruins and they have a better defense in front of them than the Senators, we get that. And people are still telling us that, and that's fine, because they are right. We get it. You got to start making that conversation go away, right? And be like, no, we're the team that has the structure that's going to help support and elevate a goalie, rather than have a goalie that's going to try to prop up a bad decor.
Final note on the defense is that we've got a couple graduates coming up. Jorian Donovan and Tomas Hamara will be pro next year, so they'll slide in on the left side of the Belleville Sens decor. But in goal, look at that. Linus Ullmark is the guy in goal. Anton Forsberg, 1 year left at 2.75. And then they still got work to do with their 2 RFA goalies, Mads Sogard and Kevin Mandolese. Levi Merilainen is still under contract. Now, if Mando wants a fresh start, he feels like he's blocked here in Ottawa, I wouldn't blame him. I also think that his numbers are better, or he's better than his numbers showed last year. And I hope he's back. I understand both sides of that, but you need 5 goalies in an organization. Heck, you might even need 6 sometimes. So I hope that they do, if they lose out on Mando, are able to fill that with another guy, but not like when they brought in Bebo or they brought in other guys. It's like who's the Mike McKenna, all these, it almost felt like they were going to be above the rookies. Like Merilainen cannot go back to Allen. He needs to be in the AHL next year. So I think you need to be careful of who you're bringing in so as not to disturb the development of both Mads Sogard and Levi Merilainen, and to a lesser extent, Kevin Mandolese as well. Any quick thoughts on the goaltending, Pillsy? God, it looks good having Linus Ullmark. By the way, no official number, but he's worn 35 his whole career, so Levy's just going to have to give that up for him.
Yeah, Ullmark looks great in the Sens jersey, as you see here if you're watching on YouTube, so we'd love to see that.
Good Photoshop.
Ross, I will say The Athletic just put out an article ranking each team's goalie tandems.
That was full scramble mode by them after the trade. They're just like, I'm sure the editor already had it at that point if it's already out.
Well, I'll tell you, Ross, before they already had the article ready to go. Guess what place the tandem of Korpisalo and Forsberg were?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
How many teams are in the NHL?
32.
32.
They were 31. I assume.
Wait. Find who's first. Columbus.
You mean last? Columbus. Yeah. Columbus is last. So
wait, where did they get Korpisalo from? Kind of
Columbus. So the Sens were 31. They are now 7. They're 7th. Only 2 spots behind the Boston Bruins now. So that, like,
where did Boston fall from? From 1 to 6?
From 1 to 5.
Yeah.
People need to understand how big this acquisition is. Like, it is an ultimate game changer for the Ottawa Senators.
It's bigger than the logo we've put on Linus Ullmark. Again, this is an episode. Even if you're listening in your car, go check out the graphics because I think it does paint the picture. We'll tweet them out later today on Twitter at Sens Central. All right, Pilsy. As much as I want to leave this graphic up for the rest of the show, Linus Ullmark is an Ottawa Senator. For more on that, go check out yesterday's episode of the show. All right, trade rumors. We're going to hear from Linus Ullmark. We'll pass on anything notable that he says and the buyout window. It's not as intricate of a conversation because Joonas Korpisalo's situation has already been solved. But is anyone else on the buyout market? That's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Game Time makes getting tickets easy. They got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets, whether it's sports, comedy, theater, or music. You can find your tickets for your night out on the town through Game Time. Go check out their app. They got lots of awesome features. I mentioned the last minute tickets. If you're not a big planner like Ross and I, you can make your decisions in the last minute and even be rewarded by saving some money on it. They got flash deals, zone deals. I love that you can see the view from your seat. If you have the app, you can do the panoramic view where it shows you everything. So there's no surprises when you get there. Lowest price guarantee. The price that you see is the price that you get. No added on features that end up costing double the price of the ticket. And you're like, well, I don't know if I want to go anymore if this is the price. Not with Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed.
All right, Pillsy, we have made it to draft week, June 26th. 80 prospect profiles, check. Full first round mock draft, check. A goalie, check. But Steve Staios still has plenty of work to do. For every step of the way, you can follow us at Sens Central and right here, Locked On Senators, everywhere you get podcasts, and on YouTube, where whenever anything happens, we will have your boots on the ground report from Viva Las Vegas. Pillsy, what are you hearing on the trade rumor front?
Well, Ross, Bruins fans certainly thought Jakob Chychrun was going to be a part of the Ullmark deal. I think a lot of Sens fans did as well. However, Steve Staios gets it done without moving on from Jakob Chychrun, so he is still available to be traded to collect assets. I would be shocked if Chychrun is not traded before the draft, Ross. It just seems like they're going to try to get some picks. Bruce Garriock wrote an article, our guy Scoops, talking about Chychrun. The indications are the Florida Panthers, Stanley Cup winners, Los Angeles Kings, Detroit Red Wings, and Chicago Blackhawks are among teams that have shown interest. Ross, I want to zero in on the Red Wings here. What a weird trade yesterday, trading Wallman and a second-round pick for future considerations to the San Jose Sharks. Ross, we talked to our guys over at Locked On Red Wings, and they were telling us Wallman is such an integral part of that D-core, and we were like, okay, we'll keep an eye on this guy. And then whenever we saw him play, or I'll speak for myself at least, I was like, damn, that is a solid defenseman that you want to keep in your group. And then to give him away for nothing and adding a second-round pick, Stevie Y is up to something. He has to be, because they already have, I think, 30 million in cap space. Now they have to sign Raymond and Sider, so a lot of that's going to go there. But you got to be thinking that he's looking for a big name there, and Jakob Chychrun is a guy that could make sense. So definitely that's something to look out for.
Dude, if the Detroit Red Wings get DeBrincat and Chychrun, like, the rivalry, it's already pretty good.
Yeah.
But it would put it on a whole other level. So I'm almost hopeful for that. And they have the 15th overall pick.
Yep.
That would be I would do that. Would you do that 1-for-1?
Yeah, actually, probably, but
15, you could probably get one of our top 14 guys.
Exactly. Yeah. Now Garriock is saying he thinks that the asking is a first and second round pick or a first and a high-end prospect.
Okay. Well, that Jonathan Berggren guy we thought might be coming over in the DeBrincat trade, but he's a guy you'd have to have in your NHL. You'd have to be confident that he's an NHL middle six, as you mentioned. They need to get some of those guys. But another sneaky one there, the Chicago Blackhawks name, which it almost doesn't make sense, but then you think a little bit deeper. Chychrun's dad and Luke Richardson married sisters. So that's his uncle.
Yeah. True.
So it's kind of funny, right? How it all works out. Everyone's kind of 3 degrees of separation in the NHL, but there's an obvious family connection with Luke Richardson, the head coach there. And he was a defenseman too. And I think that would be a really good spot. I mean, they've got the assets. They have the 18th overall pick. They traded up 2 spots to get it. Maybe that's something. Oh, if we could turn Chychrun into EJ Emery.
Oh, that would be great. And then Ross, you look at Florida. That obviously makes a lot of sense for Jakob Chychrun.
They have so much flexibility this summer too. I know you don't probably want to make too many changes to a cup-winning team. They have a ton of cap to play with, but they also have a ton of open roster spots with free agents on the board.
But the issue there, Ross, is Florida has no draft capital assets or prospects, right? So
exactly, it would have to be more of a hockey type trade. And does anything make sense? I mean, my eyes go right to Sam Bennett, but it's just not happening.
I don't think so. Yeah.
It's not happening.
Yeah.
But if they could, that would be the type of player with one year from UFA though, again. And that is double-edged sword. You either have a guy for too long, and if they don't perform, you're screwed. And if you don't have him, and what if they perform, you're screwed. Any way you slice it, but he would definitely switch the narrative around the Sens. They would not be an easy team.
As Lalim's Martian would say, that's a dog that the Sens need.
Yeah. A little unrealistic, but we'll see what happens with Jakob Chychrun. 1 year left, $4.6 million cap hit for Jakob Chychrun. All right, Pilsy, the buyout window. What would it look like for Travis Hamonic if that is the route the Senators go down?
Well, Ross, I'm completely blindsided by the idea of buying out Hamonic, so I'm not really sure what the... actually, no, I have it pulled up here, bookmarked on Cap Friendly, so I got this for you. The buyout for Travis Hamonic would be the Sens would have a cap hit of $366,667 for this year and next year. So, I mean, it's not really anything substantial. Basically, it's just freeing up a roster spot with a tiny cost attached.
Okay. And that you think is something the Senators will explore?
Yeah, and I mean, our guy Scoops has mentioned it in a couple articles saying that it's very likely that that's going to happen, and it makes sense. I think, honestly, Ross, I think that's a good move for both parties mutually. You're doing right by Hamonic by letting him become a UFA and pick his next spot rather than just sending him to Robidaw Island and kind of derailing any future value he's going to have, because he's going to try to play a couple more years. I think he probably feels like there's a couple logs left on the fire there.
I think that obviously it's a trickle reaction here, and there's plenty of those types of situations at this time of year. But the Winnipeg Jets may be looking to buy out Nate Schmidt, and if they do that, then all of a sudden there's a depth role for him. I think
bring him home.
Bring him home. I think that'd be a great story for everybody. If he could be a 6'7" defenseman here, get to be at home. Obviously, family means so much to Travis Hamonic. That's evident from how he speaks of them. And I think that could be something that we see in the next week. But I hate like piling on him, because look, we were on the side. We had our swords out being attacked by everyone when we were like, man, Hamonic, like when he got here, he wasn't like, everyone was like, this guy's awful. He was okay. He was okay. And then this past year was no. this past year was a struggle. And look, Father Time remains undefeated.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, there's no harsh feelings. It's not personal. It's just at this point, the Ottawa Senators need to elevate their decor, and he's not a part of that solution moving forward.
I just had a realization. You mentioned Detroit, big fish hunting. I'm going back to the last conversation there where Detroit, Steve Yzerman, his connection to Tampa. You think Stamkos could be a Detroit Red Wing?
Oh, he would look so bad in that jersey.
Yeah. Anyways, that's just me sorting through the little thoughts that come through my brain each and every day. Pilsy, Linus Ullmark is speaking to the media right now, and he did not have Ottawa on his no trade list.
Yeah, well, the story behind that, and Elliot Friedman kind of explains it, is a lot of the time when players and agents are making no trade lists, they won't literally be like, I don't want to go here. They'll take a look at all the situations, and Ullmark looked at the Sens situation and said, hey, these guys just signed a goalie for 5 years. I don't think they're going to be looking for a #1 goalie. So we don't need to worry about them having a list, because there's no chance they would be in the market for me, because Korpisalo is going to work out fine. He's going to be there for 5 years, and the fans are going to love him. Yeah, Sonk, that didn't work. So that could play a part in why the Sens weren't relevant on his list or off it, because him and his agent probably thought there's no chance this is happening.
Well, it did. And Ullmark says he spoke with both Anton Forsberg and Daniel Alfredsson before the trade.
Couple Swedes. There we go.
Yeah, his old
maybe Eric Brandstrom got in the mix too.
No, but he has been liking the photos. I'm so curious what happens with Eric Brandstrom, but Linus Ullmark just seems like salt of the earth guy. I was watching another feature on him, and I want to give a shout out to Daniel Raphael on YouTube, mentioning the locker room raw video for Linus Ullmark with Boston is a very good thing to watch if you want to get more of a peek behind the curtain of what Linus Ullmark is as a person, so much as he is a reigning, one more day, Pilsy, reigning Vezina winning goaltender. So Linus Ullmark speaking to the media right now. Steve Staios is expected to speak to the media later on this afternoon. That is scheduled for 3:15 Eastern time. If there's anything notable, we will jump back on. I think more so there's going to be a trade in the next 24 hours is my guess. Maybe it's going to be something minor. Maybe it's going to be something hopefully not as peculiar as Detroit trading Jake Waldman with a second-round pick for future considerations, but maybe Stevie will be looking to set up something so that on draft day, he'll be ready to rock and roll. The buyout window, I believe it's always 48 hours after the cup was awarded, so that would mean it's going to be about 10:30, 11 p.m. tonight. Any final thoughts on today's show, Pilsy?
Nope. Actually, yes. Final thoughts for me. Positive, Pilsy. I'm loving the offseason so far. Let's go.
Okay, so here's my final question to you then. How many moves does Steve Staios have up his sleeve before we leave Vegas on Sunday night? So before the free agent period. But up till June 30th. So you've got the draft in there. I'm counting pick swaps if you're going to get in on that. How many moves will Steve Staios pull off? He's already at 1.
2.
2 more? 1 more?
2 more.
So
Jakob Chychrun and another one.
And another one. Okay. Stay tuned to find out what that could be. For today, we say goodbye. Thanks so much for watching, listening, engaging with the show. We'll have our full schedule coming out tomorrow of what you can expect on our channel over the next couple days as we head to Vegas tomorrow for the NHL draft. That's Brandon Piller. I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.